Using Ancient Greek Philosophy to Better Understand the Modern World by Fleming
and Carner. What is Aristotelian essentialism, and how does it help us understand contemporary development economics?
Ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle thought very deeply about nature and virtue. Through his works, he articulated the meanings of these entities and developed theories about essentialism. Many of his theories were groundbreaking, and unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen before, his views on essentialism were so influential and timeless that they are still utilized and highly regarded in the contemporary world. A recent way in which Aristotle's findings are being used in the modern world is in development economics. Using Aristotle's teachings, the intellectuals of the modern world can better figure out how to improve the lives of people from many cultures across the globe.
Aristotle's essentialism states that every entity has a set of attributes that are necessary and distinctive to its identity and place in the world. These attributes set the entity apart from other entities and are what makes it essential. Determining what is essential to any entity is crucial because it allows us to know more than just what something is. It allows one to know what makes the entity what it is. Understanding this helps one understand why something does what it does, which leads to true knowledge. One of the infinite examples of this is the properties of a rattlesnake. What is essential to a rattlesnake is its rattle. This sets it apart from all other species of snakes. Knowing that rattlesnakes are poisonous, an individual can be truly knowledgeable that they are in danger when they hear a snake's tail rattle, because they know why they are in danger. The snake has a rattle, which means it's poisonous. This shows how knowing what is essential to an entity leads to knowledge of it.
We need to know what is essential to a human being because it gives us parameters to judge its actions by. If we know what makes an entity that given entity, we can determine what is right or wrong about the entity based on this knowledge. This helps us understand humans better because it provides knowledge of what makes us who we are as a race. This applies to all things, not just humans. We know that one thing that is essential to squirrels is the fact that they like to eat nuts and acorns with little else. Therefore, if one were to see a squirrel eating, say, a small bird, we would know that what was happening is wrong because that is an action that does not fit in what it means to be a squirrel.
Are humans still human if they are deprived of the opportunity to fully develop? Aristotle would argue that human beings who have been deprived of the opportunity to develop fully are in fact still human. This is because, having everything that is essential to being human, they do always have the internal potential to fully develop as one, although external factors may inhibit this. For example, a car crash victim who loses the function of his brain is not inhuman because of his lack of ability to think. He is still human because he does have the capacity to have all of the functions of being human, even though they may have been limited. Since nothing that is natural to who we are can be habituated to be otherwise by external factors, our character and who we develop to be stem from our perception of outside forces. This is consistent for all species, not just humans. This also applies to non-biological objects. One such example is given by Aristotle in Nicomachean Ethics, Book 2, line 19. A stone that naturally moves upward cannot be habituated to move upward, not even if to habituate it you threw it upward 10,000 times, nor will fire move downward, nor can anything else that is naturally one way be habituated into being another way. Therefore, what we become through habit or circumstance cannot change who we fundamentally are.
What sets humans apart from the animals is our ability to think rationally. This is the overarching trait that is essential to humans. Aristotle believed that there was a final cause to rational action. Since final cause is synonymous with the purpose and rational action is what it means to be human, we conclude that asking what the final cause of rational action is the same as asking what is the purpose of being human. Aristotle's answer to this is living in a state of flourishing called eudaimonia.
What is eudaimonia? It is the utmost goal of human life, according to Aristotle. It is a life that is full and well lived and is happy and flourishing throughout. It makes behavior and individual choices rational because they are done in the pursuit of maintaining eudaimonia. It is more than just happiness. Happiness can be fleeting. Eudaimonia is a state of flourishing for the body and mind for the entirety of life. Also, happiness is a feeling that is subjective and caused by different things for everyone. Eudaimonia is not what an individual feels, it's what the day-to-day life of the individual is. By living well into their full capacity, all humans have the potential to reach eudaimonia.
Aristotle says, pleasure, knowledge, and honor. According to Aristotle, living a life that involves all three of these virtues results in eudaimonia. These facets have always been what a eudaimonian life has consisted for humans, even in the ancient days of pre-Socratic philosophers. For example, pre-Socratic Pythagoras understood that knowledge is what makes a flourishing life and that humans should pursue it. He is quoted saying, "When the wise man opens his mouth, the beauties of his soul present themselves to the view, like the statues in a temple." End quote. Even before Aristotle came up with the concept of humans understood that knowledge is a virtue that leads to life well lived. This could be different for other types of creatures because each creature requires different things to live a flourishing life. Wolves do not care much for honor and knowledge to live flourishing lives. Some things that are essential to wolves are the specific ways in which they travel in packs, howl, and hunt. Therefore, a few entities that would make their lives flourishing may be a multitude of prey to hunt upon. This is far different from what it means to live well for humans, and this varies greatly from creature to creature.
It has been determined that solely measuring the gross domestic product of countries is not enough to measure the development and growth of that country. For this reason, the Human Development Index was created in 1990 to provide a more holistic scope of whether or not a country is actually developing. In addition to this, scholar Martha Nussbaum developed an assortment of 10 entities that make a human life human. Nussbaum utilized Aristotelian essentialism as a means to determine what creates a flourishing life for humans. Humans in the modern world can use knowledge of these 10 capabilities to better measure the economic development of countries because they provide more accurate criteria than solely measuring GDP. The first is mortality. We all have in some capacity either a fear of death or the feeling of grief or some type of effect from death of a loved one. If one were to come across a human being that showed no fear or apparent care about their own death or the deaths of others, according to Nussbaum, we would be unable to consider this person human. The human body. Although the experience of the human body is in large part shaped by culture, the functions of the human body itself are consistent among all humans. Nussbaum articulates that the 4 entities that are distinct for all human bodies are hunger and thirst, need for shelter, sexual desire, and mobility. Take mobility, for example. A large part of human life is centered around the ability to move on our own when we please to. This is done in a certain humanly way. A human who never chose to move throughout the entirety of its life could not possibly be considered human. Capacity for pleasure and pain. Part of being human is knowing that pain is evil and pleasure is pleasing. One who does not accept this, for example, a creature who cannot feel pain, simply could not be considered truly human. Cognitive capability. All humans possess the ability to think, perceive, and imagine. This brings to mind dystopian societies where people are brainwashed, such as in Brave New World by Aldous Huxley or The Giver by Lois Lowry. The civilians in these societies were controlled by the government, and their capacities to think freely and imagine were impeded upon. These societies could not be considered truly human. Early infant development. Another facet that makes humans human is early infant development. Each human that has ever lived has been completely helpless during the early stages of its life as a baby. Humans are united by this early structure of human life, complete dependency on other people. Any society that is not made up of people who experience this utter dependency on others during the earliest stage of their lives cannot be considered human. Practical reason. All humans also possess the ability to reason, to think and make choices throughout their lives and function according to their own decisions. Similar to cognitive capability, the ability to reason is essential to being human. Affiliation with others. Another characteristic that is unique to humanity is our need for affiliation with others. A lot of what makes life worth living is our interaction and relationships with other people. Humans naturally consider a life that is not lived in affiliation with others to be a life that is not worth living. This is why a common reason for suicide in the modern world is feeling truly alone and not having anyone to trust or share life with. In contrast, a life that is filled with connection and care for others is rewarding and provides true fulfillment for the individual. Relatedness to other species in nature. Humans recognize that we are not the only things on the planet. There are also many other species, and nature. We understand that we owe some respect to the other entities that we share our planet with, although this respect varies greatly from culture to culture. Unfortunately, in the contemporary world, respect for other species and nature has decreased significantly. Developed society has proven to value the pursuit of money over respect for nature and animals. Nussbaum and Aristotle would both argue that this makes us less human than a society like that of the Native Americans, for example, who lived as one with their surroundings. In spite of this, it is undeniable that this respect is present in some way, no matter how small, in every human society. Even one who cares not for the needs of nature still has to bundle up in a snowstorm or chooses to go to the beach when the weather is warm. Not having any relation to nature or any other species would be to be inhuman. Humor and play. Another defining human characteristic is the capacity for laughter and play. Different societies carve out varying amounts of time for play and absence of work, but this does exist in some capacity in every culture. A life that is completely devoid of laughter and play is a life that is not worth living and not human. Separateness. Lastly, all humans have their own identity and experience the world that they live in their own way. Paradoxically, all humans are united by the fact that they are different. Although many people may want to come as close as possible to the person they love, it is a different thing altogether to want to actually become that person, because identity and inner self would be lost in the process. There has never been a human who doesn't experience the world as an individual, so this is also essential to being human. These capabilities and limits represent what is essential to being human, what sets our species apart from all other species. This makes them Aristotelian. The more in touch humans are with the items in this list that are capabilities, such as humor and play, cognitive thinking, and affiliation with others, the more well-lived the human life is. Thus, the greater capacity that the individual has to experience the items above, the closer the individual is to a eudaimonia in life.
Even though this list makes up what is essential to being human, there are 2 thresholds to consider. Meeting the first threshold for each one signifies that there is at least some capacity for it, It means that the individual meets at least the basic level human requirement for it. The second threshold is what needs to be met for the individual to have enough of this capacity in his or her life for their life to be lived well or flourishing. For example, a hardworking man who spends most of his time at the office and very little with his children will at least have the basic capacity for play and recreation that is needed to be human, but he may not have enough of it to be happy. An additional example is the health of various nations. Both the United States and the African nation of Liberia suffer from health issues. These issues require a response to fix them and improve the lives of those who are suffering in each nation. However, what is needed to solve health issues in the United States, such as chemotherapy and the research on obesity, is far different from what is needed to combat health issues in Liberia, such as mosquito nets to prevent malaria. To remedy what is limiting in each individual person or each individual society, we must look into the context, history, and culture of it. This allows us to understand the circumstances that are causing the lack in certain capabilities and gives us the knowledge necessary to remedy them. It is important to keep in mind that while what is required for basic human flourishing is not relative, the remedies needed for lacking flourishing are, because each individual story is different. Therefore, the right action cannot be stated in exceptionalist generalities, regardless of the truth to them.
We argue that many of the world's most developed countries, which boast extremely high GDP levels, are lacking greatly in some of the things that are most essential to human life. For example, many hardworking, high-achieving citizens in countries such as the United States are too busy earning money to find time for recreational activities and quality time with friends and family. In the world of high GDP, people are often so focused on making money that they miss out on meaningful relationships, including relationships with nature in addition to just humans. The subjection of nature to the modern capitalist has created an extreme disconnect between humans and their natural surroundings. These are examples that in a world of rapid achievement and development actually represent regression for the human race because they result in less meaningful lives. Therefore, by uncovering what is essential to the human condition in the Aristotelian way, we can find that there is a lot more than just GDP that represents how well a nation is developing. Although this analyzation undoubtedly shows financial growth, it does not fully show how well the lives of the citizens of each nation are truly being lived in accordance with what is essential to humanity.
Thank you.